Yemen forces deter Houthi rebels' attacks in Marib. United States government says it is committed to support Yemen. World Health Organization announces restoring a number of health facilities in Yemen. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news with me, Roshan Fouad. Government forces backed by the popular resistance broke a large-scale attack by the Houthi militia northwest of Marib on El Qasara and Mas fronts, after Houthi groups had tried to advance in those sites. Also, Third Region forces carried out a tight ambush in one of the militia's sites on the Qasara front, leaving dozens dead and wounded. Marib city has become recently a major headline in the Yemeni war's sad chapter. Houthi rebels have started attacking the city since the year 2020, aiming to control the oil-rich zone. Yet they are not winning. The following report has more details on the economic and political importance of Marib.
The war in Yemen has a decisive moment. This moment will be very clear with the battle in Marib. Marib is a city that is located to the center west of Yemen. It is about 170 kilometers east of the capital Sana'a. It has nearly 1 million of population, and its strategic importance lies within the oil wealth. In 1986, the government opened a refinery in Marib which produced more than 10,000 barrels per day. The refinery was expanded to produce 25,000 barrels per day. Houthi militia is pushing ahead to seize the strategic governorate, as their campaign is to control oil and the land. For them, the fall of Marib will deal a big blow to the government force that strive with those tribes supporting them to hold the Houthis back. The strategic location of this governorate affords it a specific importance that its fall will control the roads to the south, the west and the east. Marib is last stronghold for the government. For this reason, fierce clashes continue day by day to fence off the Houthi advancements. Marib is the gate of victory to the government forces too, which try to score a win with which it could change the game. The die-hard resistance will give the government forces a hope of securing the line between the west of the country and its east, and will keep Houthis within their limits, if even not pushing them back to their stronghold in the north. Forcing Houthis back and securing lines of command in Yemen may then give an opportunity to the resistance to secure the humanitarian aids to millions of Yemenis, and will slow the pace of displacement, especially in the city. Looking ahead, the whole world powers are observing the coming days to see how the situation in Marib may develop and how by then the scene in Yemen as a whole will be shaped.
In Hodeidah, Houthi militia shelled residential villages in El Jabalaya area of El Tahaita district, south of the city. A local source said that the Houthi militia brutally targeted residential villages and houses, causing fear and panic among civilians. Since day one, the new American administration has repeatedly stressed its genuine interest to support Yemen and end the conflict. This support takes two major aspects, political and economic. The following report tries to examine such American support to Yemen.
The Biden administration announced another $165 million in aid recently to keep civilians fed in warring Yemen, calling the six-year conflict there stimulated as international peace efforts still struggle to gain purchase. The United States' focus on humanitarian efforts comes after Iran-backed Houthi rebels baffled what were repeated appeals by incoming Biden administration to enter peace talks. Houthi fighters have opted instead to keep pressing a siege to capture Yemen's last government stronghold in the north, Marib, in an oil-rich province. The Houthis are not winning in Marib. Despite the grinding siege, U.S. Special Envoy for Yemen, Tim Lindeking, said in a call with reporters last Monday. And when that reality dawns on people, dawns on Houthis, I think it will force them to realize that the continued isolation and the fact that the conflict is more of a stalemate, it will pull them back and I hope bring them to the negotiating table, Lindeking said. The conflict in Yemen, the Arab world's poorest nation, began with the 2014 takeover of the capital Sana'a by Houthis a Yemeni rebel faction that has seized extensive territory. The Biden administration said at its outset it was ending any US support for the Arab coalition in the war. On the humanitarian front, Yemen, which imports most of its food and other commodities, remains the world's worst crisis. The new funding will allow the UN World Food Programme to keep providing emergency food assistance to 11 million Yemenis monthly, said Sarah Charles, a US Agency for International Development official for humanitarian aid. The US is the largest aid donor for Yemen, providing $3.6 billion. Charles, the UN said, pledging conferences to stave off famine, they consistently fall short of their fundraising goals as the war grinds on. Linda King praised work by Oman and others for peace talks. He described Iran as the only remaining international player in the conflict, indifferent or worse to stopping the fighting. I hear some sweet words coming out of Tehran, but I haven't seen anything on the ground that leads me to believe that the Iranians are prepared to play a constructive role, he added. The US official also was more explicit than previously in openly blaming both sides in Yemen conflict for chronic fuel shortage that is crippling food and aid deliveries and helping drive up food prices beyond the reach for many Yemenis. Linda King accuses Houthis of stockpiling fuel to dry up prices for their profit and of using port revenue to fund their fighting, in violation of 2018 international agreement. Since the start of the war in 2015, the international community has been making giant efforts as to end the conflict in Yemen. This is reflected on the number of special envoys appointed to help broker a peace deal. Yet, all this seems to be obstructed by the obstinance of the Houthi militia. This has made Yemen a tale of missed and then lost opportunity.
UNHCR announced that 85% of displaced families in Marib are unable to pay rentals. UNHCR warned humanitarian needs in Marib have reached a worrying level, with more people forced to flee as a result of Houthis' rejection of all peace proposals. The organization officials said that life conditions have exceeded their capacity. Relief organizations can only reach to 21% of the displaced camps due to insecurity as they are close to the front lines, calling on to ensure access to the camps to be able to deliver vital aid to the displaced. World Health Organization in a tweet announced the start of the restoring of 45 health facilities in Yemen to improve the healthcare sector in the country. The health system in Yemen continues to collapse due to the conflict, which has entered its 7th year now. We aim to improve water, sanitation, and hygiene services. During July 2021, restoring 45 health facilities stated, according to the organization. Earlier, the OCHA office in Yemen called on the international community and donors to hasten funding for the water, sanitation, and hygiene sectors, indicating that more than 15 million people need assistance in these sectors, 8 million of them urgently. The war in Yemen has demolished major part of the infrastructure. The sector that has been severely damaged by this mad war is health. The following report discusses the collapse of the healthcare system in Yemen due to the war.
The World Health Organization warns nearly 18 million people in Yemen are unable to get treatment for deadly diseases because years of war, economic distress, and chronic shortage of money, which have led to a collapse of the country's healthcare system. More than 5 years of escalating conflict have devastated Yemen's economy and ability to provide enough food and medical care to keep its population healthy. World Health Organization officials report only half of the country's health facilities are fully functioning, and those that remain open suffer from severe shortage of qualified staff, essential medicines, and supplies, which makes it very hard for the healthcare system in Yemen. Yemeni people who have chronic diseases such as cancer, diabetes, or others have only limited treatment. The armed conflict and political instability have disrupted the delivery of essential healthcare supplies. Yemen records many deaths on a daily basis, not only because of COVID-19, but also as a result of malaria, cholera, and other diseases. If people are not properly treated and taken care of as soon as possible, then this crisis may never end.
Coming next. Displaced people's suffering continues.
ثالثتي على منطقة الروضة استهدف الأطفال الأبرياء يلعبوا في الشارع يدعي للسلام يقولوا للسلام يقتل أطفالنا يقاتل أطفالنا الأبرياء.
أنا قلت افتجعت ولا قلنا يقع واحد صاروخ ثاني طلعت البيت حقنا عشان ألعب أنا وأصحابي والصاروخ الطرخ.
Welcome back. The ongoing war in Yemen has complicated the crisis of displacement in the country. 20 million people require humanitarian assistance. More than 4 million Yemeni people are displaced and many others need food supplies. The following report sheds light on one of these sad stories of a displaced people, this time from Hais.
Forced displacement and continuous suffering haunt Yasser Muhammad Shubail, who was forced to leave his village and home by the Houthi militia, along other residents of the village. As soon as Yasser and his family took refuge in the center of the city of Hais and began to stay in a simple house, he found himself unable to pay the rent due to harsh living conditions imposed by the war on the majority of Yemenis.
Houthis expelled us from our village and we lived in Hais for 4 years. We used to have a house of our own and now we couldn't pay the rent, so they asked us to leave the house. We had no home, so we stayed on the streets. A benefactor came and made us live in his unfinished house. There is no work, no salaries. We can't even buy clothes. We go to collect and sell firewood across a land and that's full of mines.
Yasser was subjected to constant teases from the owner of the house, as is this case with the many, until he was forced to leave the house and became homeless and lived on the bare land. He is looking for a safe place to ensure a shelter for his family, who are now enduring hardship. And they have no one other than the people of Al-Barha neighborhood, as a helpful man opened his unfinished house, so Yasser and his family could reside in.
I noticed that there are many displaced people who do not have a mattresses or pillows to sleep on, as they sleep on the floor. I appeal to benefactors to look at the displaced people who flee from the war zones to the liberated areas in order to search for peace and tranquility, but there is no peace.
We call on the people not to harass the displaced. They are one of your own, and as you see, they do not have any source of income. We also ask the organizations to continue to give such cases assistance in a continuous manner.
Hundreds of internally displaced in Hais have been harassed because of their inability to pay the rent and secure the daily expenses of their families. They are now living in huts and yachts, inhabited by poverty, oppression and pain. In spite of their suffering, they are ignored by local and international organizations. People die in these remote areas due to the lack of basic life needs. Yet, they, with the hope that the future will be less miserable than what they are experiencing today, will the hopes of a decent and peaceful life come true? Or this will be swept by the brutality of the Iran-backed Houthi militia? Only time can tell.
The Houthi militia forced public and private schools in Sana'a to hold sectarian events during the morning assembly. Educational sources said the Houthi militia forced schools to hold sectarian activities, since Houthis have vowed to take strict measures against violators. The militia has changed the school curriculum, names of schools and colleges, and replaced them with sectarian names. Houthi militia has dismissed about 1,000 teachers and workers in the educational sector. Local sources said that the militia dismissed 5,000 teachers in Sana'a and another 3,000 in other cities as part of their plan to tighten control over the education. This comes about a week after the militia leader spoke of free-shaped state institutions of government loyalists. Union and parliamentary sources confirmed that Minister of Civil Service in the militia government started measures related to dismiss and retire 160,000 state employees in the institutions under the militia's control, and they are replacing them with loyalists. The National Committee Against Coronavirus announced the registration of 35 new cases of the epidemic in 5 governorates. Committee officials said on Twitter that 18 cases were recorded in Hadramaut, 13 in Aden, 2 in Shabwa, 1 in Taiz, and 1 in Al-Bayda. Also 3 deaths were documented, all in Hadramaut, plus 24 recovered cases, 17 in Aden, 5 in Hadramaut, 1 in Al-Bayda, and 1 in Taiz. With the current updates, the total confirmed cases are 7,711, including 1,447 deaths and 4,760 cases of recovery. Here is a reminder of the main headlines. Government forces deter Houthi rebels' attacks in Marib. United States government says it is committed to support Yemen. World Health Organization announces restoring a number of health facilities in Yemen. This is the end of the news. Thank you for watching.